Foo Fighters are back with their 12th studio album, and this one feels like Dave Grohl hitting the reset button, stripping things back, turning the distortion up, and reminding everyone where this band came from. But is your favorite toy a genuine return to form, or is it just nostalgia in a new package? Let's get into it. I've been a Foo Fighters fan since the mid-2000s, although I was aware of the band from the very beginning. Like a lot of people, I knew who Dave Grohl was from Nirvana, and watching him go on to build one of the biggest rock bands in the world was something special to follow. This band has been through a lot over the years, lineup changes, tragedies, reinventions, but they've always found a way to keep going. Their previous album, But Here We Are, came out in 2023, and honestly, it doesn't feel like that long ago. I went back and listened to it again recently in preparation for the review. It's a great album, one of my albums of the year from 2023. But it's also a deeply emotional and heavy record written as a tribute to Taylor Hawkins following his death. It carries a lot of weight, and rightfully so. The new album feels completely different in tone. Where But Here We Are was the band processing grief, Your Favorite Toy feels like Dave Grohl waking up one morning and deciding he just wants to rock again. It's lighter in spirit, rawer in sound, and in a lot of ways reminds me more of the first two albums than anything they've released in years. I thought it was a breath of fresh air. Your Favorite Toy is the 12th studio album by Foo Fighters, released April 24, 2026 on Roswell Records and RCA Records. It was produced by the band alongside engineer Ilan Rubin, which makes it the first Foo Fighters record not co-produced by Greg Kurstin since Sonic Highways back in 2014. It was recorded at Dave Grohl's home studio and at the band's Studio 606 facility in Los Angeles. Also Mark's first studio album to feature new drummer Ilan Rubin, who stepped into what was always going to be an incredibly difficult seat to fill. The album was announced on February 19th, 2026, alongside its title track, which Dave Grohl described as a song that set the overall direction and tone for the entire record. Following what he called an extended period of experimentation. 4 singles dropped before the release, and I'll be honest with you, I only got around to listening to them a few days before the album came out. But when I did, I immediately got the sense that this was going to be something different. Something leaner and more raw than recent Foo Fighters material. A 10-track, 36-minute record where most songs clock in around 3 to 4 minutes. Concise, direct, no filler. And let me tell you what worked here just to start off, because a lot of it does work very well. The biggest thing this album gets right is its energy. From the first track to the last, there's a relentless, punk-influenced urgency that runs through the whole record. Dave Grohl sounds genuinely energized, like a guy who rediscovered why he started making music in the first place. That enthusiasm is infectious, and it carries the album even through its slower moments. That decision to go raw and strip back was absolutely the right call. Doesn't sound like a modern arena rock album with pristine production and layers of polish. It sounds like a band in a room playing with conviction and not overthinking it. That's harder to pull off than it sounds, and they do it well. The punk and grunge influences are front and center throughout the album, and that's where it really connects for me. There are moments that genuinely sound like they could have come from early Nirvana catalog, that quiet verse, loud chorus dynamic, the raw vocal approach, the scrappy guitar tones. For a band that's been making polished arena rock for most of the 2000s, this feels like a meaningful and deliberate course correction. Ilan Rubin also deserves recognition. Stepping in as a new drummer for Foo Fighters under any circumstances would be challenging, but doing it in the shadow of Taylor Hawkins is a different kind of pressure entirely. He handles it with confidence, providing a solid and energetic backbone throughout the record without trying to be anyone other than himself. And the album's length is actually a strength. 36 minutes, 10 tracks, no overstaying in the welcome. In an era where albums frequently bloat past the hour mark trying to justify their existence, there's something refreshing about a band that knows when to stop. Now let's be fair, I'll talk about the criticisms because they exist, and some of them are worth taking seriously. The most common complaint you'll find online is that the album lacks innovation. One YouTube reviewer went as far as calling it the worst Foo Fighters album to date, describing certain tracks as bland and forgettable with not enough substance in the lyrics or ideas. I personally disagree with that assessment pretty strongly, but I hear where it's coming from. There was a review from Euronews, and they said that the album sounds like nothing new, suggesting that its familiarity feels like a letdown compared to the emotional depth of But Here We Are, and that some of the lyricism comes across as shallow rather than meaningful. I didn't go into this album analyzing the lyrics too deeply. I was focused on the music itself, but I can see how someone coming off the profound emotional weight of But Here We Are might find this record a little lightweight by comparison. The production is also a polarizing topic. Reddit users described the mix as raw and basic, and a few reviews called it cheap sounding. One Sputnik music reviewer went with beige, uninspired dad rock with cheap sounding production, which is a brutal line. And look, I get it, the mix is rougher on the edges, but I think that's intentional. They were clearly going for a punk rock and grunge aesthetic rather than a pristine modern sound. That said, it doesn't hit the heights of Wasting Light, which I still consider their best sounding album from a production standpoint. There's also the repetitive chorus criticism, which comes up for a few tracks. Some listeners feel the hooks overstay their welcome. For me personally, the repetition works on certain songs where the message benefits from the emphasis, but I can understand why it bothers some people. And yes, somebody called it dad rock, and honestly, they're not wrong. It's a record made by a rock veteran for people who grew up on grunge and punk. If that's you, you're going to love it. If you're hoping for something more adventurous, you might be left wanting more. Now that I got that out of the way, let me go through all 10 tracks real quickly. Caught in the Echo opens the album with big guitar chords and a tone that immediately reminded me of Wasting Light. Dave uses some harsher vocals while still keeping the pop sensibility intact. There's a raw punk energy to it, and around the midpoint, the song shifts into a more melodic gear before building back up. It is a strong opening statement. Of all people, leans even further into the classic sound. This one genuinely sounds like it could have been a Nirvana track. Raw punk energy, a shouting, singing vocal style, and a real sense of urgency throughout. It's one of the highlights of the first half. Windows slows things down a little. It has a 90s grunge feel that actually reminded me of Sonic Youth at points, a laid-back, slightly psychedelic vibe that provides a nice contrast to the more aggressive tracks. There's some cool psychedelic sounds towards the end that I appreciated as well. Your Favorite Toy, the title track, picks up the pace with classic 90s Foo Fighters energy. Dave uses more distorted vocals here and also picked up some gothic rock and post-punk influence in the guitar. You can hear his daughter Harper providing some backing vocals if you listen closely. This is a fun track and a worthy lead single. If You Only Knew is a track that sounds more like modern Foo Fighters, big guitars, melodic vocals, a more polished feel. It has some softer sections and a guitar solo, and while it's a solid song, it didn't grab me as strongly as the first 4 tracks. Spitshine brings the raw energy back in a big way. This is one of the heavier tracks on the record, hardcore vocal style, classic punk sound, but with enough pop sensibility in the hooks to keep it accessible. One of the more memorable songs on the album. Unconditional has a funky bass line running underneath a post-punk influenced structure. It's the other track that leans more towards a modern Foo Fighters sound, catchy and pop-oriented, with distorted guitars adding some edge. I felt this was a solid midpoint track. Child Actor is one of my personal favorites. It has that classic Nirvana, quiet verse, loud chorus dynamic, and the lyrics here are the most interesting on the album. Dave seems to be exploring how a child actor feels, wanting the cameras turned off, wanting privacy, wanting to be just a person. Whether that's the right interpretation or not, it resonated with me. Yes, the chorus is repetitive, but I think the repetition serves the point in the song. Amen Caveman has that classic grunge feel, and there are some guitar riffs in the middle section that really stand out, straightforward and effective. Asking for a Friend closes the album, starting softly before building into big guitars and catchy hooks. This one has a more serious, emotional tone. Dave Grohl described it as a song for those enduring hardship, waiting patiently through difficult times and holding out on hope. Also feels like a spiritual companion to But Here We Are. In some ways, a bridge between grief and moving forward, a fitting and thoughtful closer. So now for my final thoughts. Your Favorite Toy is not trying to be the most ambitious or innovative Foo Fighters album. It's not trying to out-emotional But Here We Are or out-produce Wasting Light. What it's trying to do is remind you why you fell in love with this band in the first place. The raw energy, the punk spirit, the sense that rock music can just be fun and loud and alive. On those terms, it absolutely succeeds. Are there valid criticisms? Of course, the production is intentionally rough, lyrics aren't always deep, and some people will find the whole thing too familiar. But for me personally, familiar done this well is more than enough. This band has been through enormous loss and change, and they've come out the other side sounding energized and hungry. And that means something. I'm giving Your Favorite Toy by the Foo Fighters a 9 out of 10. Check out this video I did about the Foo Fighters and their first album, which should be appearing on your screen right now. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Please like the video. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you have not already. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.